It's the 3rd century of the second calendar. The Federation, a totem of totalitarian terror, has extended its web of despotism far and wide across the known galaxy. A squad of legionnaires, swindlers, assassins and smugglers travel through the cosmos in a colossal spaceship forged with state-of-the-art alien technology. They have one impassioned intention: to bring the Federation to its knees and right wrongs, crushing corruption, shattering the shackles of slavery, and destroying all despots. Week by week, we united with our anti-heroes on their quest. A voyage fraught with danger, with calamity and chaos. These are Blake's 7.
Long look. That's the last you'll ever see of it.
No, I'm coming back.
Blake 7 is television gold and is like a negative of Star Trek, despite Star Trek being undoubtedly inspirational. It also kicks the hippie optimism of the 1960s firmly in the jaw, replacing it with a gritty pessimism prevalent in a lot of UK programming output in the mid to late 1970s. Weekly, we witnessed a hair-raising journey through space and become enthralled when our heroes teleported to alien worlds, although 9 times out of 10 these places look suspiciously like a quarry or the English countryside. There they were engaged in conflict, fighting for probity, but unlike Star Trek, the similarity stops there, as Terry Nation elects for a more cold-blooded approach to the unfurling space opera. Like Star Trek's Kirk Scotty and various Klingon adversaries, Avon, Blake, Villa and Servalan became household names.
Maximum power!
Commanding a legion of fans, with the series hitting tens of millions at its peak. Blake 7 was the brainchild of Terry Nation, formerly known to viewers of Look, Look and Look Again due to our scrutiny of his dystopian foray into post-apocalyptic tenacity with 1975 Survivors. To refresh ourselves, Nation started out as a TV scriptwriter who won well-warranted applause for his telefantasy and science fiction accomplishments since his leap from its foundations in comedy writing in the early 1960s. It was his contribution to anthology series such as ABC TV's Out of This World that showcased his mastery for the otherworldly, and conclusively his eponymous triumph with the Daleks for BBC TV's Doctor Who that raised Nation above the parapet into the BBC and public's consciousness, a legacy that still reverberates to this day. In the 1960s, Terry Nation was riding high on the golden crest of cult TV's wave and loaned his writing flair to a bundle of hits for ITC. with programmes such as The Baron, The Saint and The Champions. He evolved to the position of script editor for The Avengers around the same time in the late 1960s as his programmes were broadcast, and then ended up producing another hit with The Persuaders. Subsequently, getting The Survivors off the ground, Nation left Survivors at a relatively early stage, and the BBC asked Nation for more concepts. Nation provided them with an idea he had for The Dirty Dozen in Space. Nation submitted his first script for Blake 7 on the 11th of September 1975, which was a 50-odd paged document with the pilot episode called Cygnus Alpha, which ultimately became the episode The Way Back upon transmission, and it differs only slightly in terms of the plot and content. Cygnus Alpha would be given to the third episode. The lead protagonist was, and always would be for the foreseeable future, Rog Blake, who was joined by 7 others, but this was dwindled down significantly. The antecedent version of Blake was more sentimental and tender than the result televised. For example, when Blake hears the extermination of rebels at a covert rendezvous, he collapses to his knees, buries his head in his hands, and sobs woefully. Such mortification never made it to the televised version. Another character was Jenna, and she was summarised as a stunningly beautiful girl in her late 20s, very poised and sophisticated, and it explains in the script that she flies her own meagre spacecraft to bootleg goods among neighbouring worlds. Villa was formerly 35 years of age, good-looking and athletic. He appears to find everything amusing. Villa's whimsy is nowhere near as jutting as in the broadcast episodes. In the blueprint for Villa, it was more of a mocking cynicism. Ola Gan originally had no dialogue at all. Gan was depicted as a very powerfully built and morose, whilst Avon, in his mid-30s, intelligent and rather serious. Nation also recommended a title sequence which differs from the iconic opening titles that were eventually used, although there is a variation on the original visuals. Nation was asked if he could scribe all of the first 13 episodes. The first season was to have been 26 episodes, divided into 2 volumes of 13, with chapter 13 ending on a white knuckle with the outcome penned on the first episode of the new batch, but 13 episodes per season was chosen instead. From season 2 onwards, alternative writers would be introduced, with Terry Nation given the option of contributing more scripts if he so desired. It was pivotal to the show's prosperity that Terry Nation's name should be associated to the show due to his past successes. By the late spring of 1977, 6 of Terry Nation's draft scripts had been created. The hunt was on for a producer, and as we shall see, many talents from Doctor Who were migrated over. David Maloney was put forward, who was already at that stage an accomplished Doctor Who director who could readily supervise the specialised quality needed for this type of production. Maloney was appointed, and his first choice for a script editor was Mr. Robert Holmes, who was at the time part of the winning team of himself and Philip Hinchcliffe, producing Tom Baker's Golden Age of Doctor Who, which had been a total triumph with public and press alike. But Holmes spurned the offer and advocated Chris Boucher, another Doctor Who contributor. A party of 3 directors was constructed with the plan of them functioning in turn. The first was Pennant Roberts, an independent director who had qualified at the BBC and worked on, you've guessed right, Doctor Who, as well as programmes like Sutherland's Law and Softly Softly Task Force. Another Who director to join Roberts was Michael E. Bryant, who had also worked on shows such as Dixon of Dock Green,
Good evening, all.
the cheap and cheerful Scrubs and Scalpel soap Angels, and Warship. And there was the most elder of the three, who was Veer Lorimer, who directed a divergent inventory of programmes from Sooty and Sykes to Spy Trap. Keen to propel away from felony drama, Lorimer needled Ronnie Marsh, the head of drama series at the BBC, for something different, and therefore was appointed Blake 7. All of the directors had input into the casting of consistent characters and were all eager to produce science fiction with an adult leaning, a sharply contrasting ambience from Doctor Who.
How long do you think the air will last?
Well, if we don't move around too much.
Hardly seems worth trying to stay alive a few minutes longer.
Now look, if you're thinking of shooting yourself or something, forget it. I don't believe in suicide, it stunts your growth.
Actually, wasn't what I was thinking of.
Eventually, a fourth director was brought on board, this being Douglas Camfield, known for his octane direction. Even the studio-bound Doctor Who adventures got the Camfield treatment and featured at least one bloody good punch-up and raw action involving stuntmen, mainly Stuart Fell, who was also utilised for the stunts in Blake 7. I always seem to get excited when Camfield is in the director's chair, even if the story or parts of it are as dull as ditch water. Trust Camfield to bring it to life. This guy could revive a corpse by camera. The special effects was handled by Ian Scoons, a visual effects designer whose experience included several Hammer films of the 1960s and several Doctor Who episodes of the 1970s. Scoons was conscious of Star Wars opening in the new year in the UK and was also mindful that the restrictions of budget would highlight inadequacies in the production. One of the issues was the ship the Liberator, which was designed by set designer Roger Murray Leach. Scoons devised a much more sleeker spacecraft opposed to Murray Leach's more imaginative and eye-catching design. However, the more ostentatious one. The Liberator proved very problematic construct. It was nigh on impossible to rise it up and also for it to glide. Ultimately, 3 designs were invented, a 3-foot model, a 1-foot model, and a smaller version still, manufactured by effects maestro Matt Irvine. Scoons used almost all the effects allocation on the first 4 episodes by enlisting top technicians of the day and utilising Bray Studios' amenities. Despite the curbs, the effect shots here work very well indeed, especially the Liberator itself, and the domed city and the penal ship called the London. Chiefly, the starkness to the sets, being carefully lit, give the scenes involving the Federation's artificial city a clinical feel, almost heartless, in keeping with the people who reside there, and especially those in charge of the Federation. Also, it seems to be in keeping with the people's drug-induced suppression, clearly a nod to Aldous Huxley's novel Brave New World. Another headache found was the saber weapons and the teleport bracelets, which frequently broke due to their fragility. Little survived of these past the first season. Casting had also commenced with actors Warren Clarke, Martin Jarvis, Maurice Colborne, Peter Egan, Paul Darrow and Donald Sumpter being mooted for the role of Rog Blake. This finally went to Gareth Thomas, as per the recommendation by producer David Maloney to Terry Nation. For the role of Jenna, Jan Harvey, Jan Chappell, Candice Glendenning, Jane Asher and Susan Waldridge were recommended but the part went to Sally Nivette after she auditioned for the part, further endorsed by BBC director Bill Slater, who heard very good things about the actress after filming wrapped up on a series called Who Pays the Ferryman, in which Nivette starred and suitably impressed. By now the lead roles were jiggled about, and noting the cast was male-heavy, a female character was created for incorporation into the regulars, this being Callie, a telepath.
My name is Blake. I'm trying to make contact with the resistance group.
How did you get here?
We came from...
May you die alone and silent.
Well, you can talk, then. You may be telepathic, but you certainly can't read minds. Well, you never would have fallen for that, would you?
She was described as a tenacious warfare specialist with telekinetic abilities. Chris Boucher deliberated this gift at huge breadth with Dr. Christopher Evans, also scientific advisor to the Tomorrow People series, which is of note. There was a really scant difference to the outline of Callie at the draft stage to what we ultimately see televised. Callie was to be dark in disparity to the fairer Jenna and was assimilated to an Israeli female mercenary. Sabina Franklin, Suzanne Farmer and Jenny Nevinson auditioned, but the part went to Jan Chappell, who had already gone for the role of Jenna but was pipped at the post by Nivette. Chappell welcomed the role but had scepticisms about being in a science fiction programme. By June 1977, the breakdown of characters that became the regulars of the show was now secured. Alan Lake, Peter Benson, Forbes Collins and Michael Keating — Keating was recommended by director Pennant Roberts — were considered for the role of Villa, with Keating securing the part. The part of Olag Gan went to David Jackson, an old acquaintance of David Maloney, and finally one of the directors of the show, Veer Lorimer, suggested his old buddy Peter Tuddenham be cast in the role of the ship's computer Zen. Tuddenham refrained from the monotone grate usually attributed to the robotic and gave Zen a more succinct, clipped but humanistic quality. Tuddenham was asked, along with others, to provide a recording of his voice, which was submitted to the production office for consideration. Tuddenham's was the most favourable, and therefore Tuddenham got the part. Although Paul Darrow had initially auditioned for the part of Blake, he was also advocated by Veer Lorimer for the role of Kerr Avon.
Avon calling.
Don't move.
Good shot, Avon.
I was aiming for his head.
Darrow screen tested for the role and got it. Darrow was in fact born to play this character. All principal actors were given a 26-episode obligation with the BBC for the first two series of Blake 7, with options for the BBC, which meant the actors couldn't leave the show without agreement with the corporation, but the BBC could get rid of them if they deemed it necessary. Also, the actors were employed on a fixed fee basis. This ensured that if a character became immensely popular, they couldn't then demand more money and hold the production to ransom. In June 1977, the BBC fanfared the show to the nation and disclosed their commitment to 13 50-minute episodes and £750,000 budget. In September 1977, followed it up with added information about the series' characters and elements of the early episode plots for a projected transmission of 1978. For the actors involved in the production, this proved exhausting. Despite a few setbacks, Blake 7 had finally arrived. Rog Blake was the lead, maliciously accused and stitched up of crimes against the state, as well as erroneous allegations on the unsavoury aspect of being a nonce.
Quite the celebrity. Something of a come down for a leader of men, isn't it? Molesting kids.
The charges were false.
Oh yes, of course.
Blake's mind was wiped out and he was reprogrammed by the Federation. His mind was washed of his freedom-fighting days until the memories come flooding back when he is reunited with another man called Bran Foster, who reveals his past and hopes he will lead a rebellion against the Federation again. Blake is revolted by the regime and learns his whole family were butchered by the Federation, despite being told they were alive as immigrants to the outer worlds. Jenna Stannis was an intergalactic smuggler whom Blake develops a soft spot for. Her mother was viciously assaulted and then slain by the Federation. Jenna was arrested for her free trade racketeering, where unknowingly she was used as a pawn in smuggling a cargo containing the highly habit-forming drug known as Shadow. Olag Gan was another member of the team, condemned to the murder of a Federation security guard in retaliation after the guard murdered his girlfriend. Due to Olag's colossal capabilities of strength, he was fitted with a brain implant that inhibits his aggressive nature.
Easy, take it easy. I hate personal violence, especially when I'm the person.
Who are you?
I'm Villaresto.
Where are we?
In a transit cell. I don't understand. You're on your way to the penal colony on Cygnus Alpha. Or you will be when the prison ships refuel. Try to look on the bright side, it must have something. None of the guests have ever left early. In fact, none of them have ever left at all.
Villaresto was a bit of an intergalactic artful dodger who professes to be as thick as mince, but is far from it. Villa specialises in picking locks, and his skills allow him to break into the unbreakable.
Do you know how those door panels work?
No, not that time.
It's simple enough. All authorized personnel have their palm prints filed in the computer. The blue sensor plate reads the print. If it conforms, the computer opens the door.
Neat.
Most computer-based functions are.
Blake Kerr Avon. When it comes to computers, he's the number 2 man in all the Federated Worlds.
Who's number one?
The guy who caught him.
Kerr Avon, cool as a cucumber, and as it is later summed up,
Beneath that cold exterior beats a heart of pure stone.
Avon is a technological whiz-kid arrested for embezzling 500 million credits from the Federation's banking operation. There was also Callie, who appeared a little later in the televised episodes, and she was a telepathic soldier of fortune sent to help the freedom fighters on the planet Saurian Major. It was a bit of a suicide mission for her. On her home planet of Auron, she was extradited for her rebellious attitude.
Janice, Dennis.
Who is it?
Zen. Welcome, Rog Blake.
Where are you? Show yourself.
Your species requires a visual reference point.
Blake.
This is your reference point.
You're a computer.
As you say, Care Avon.
Who owns this ship? Where are they?
The navigation units will accept your spoken commands. Please state speed and course.
I want a course for the Earth Federation penal planet Cygnus Alpha.
Galactic Center coordinates are confirmed.
Speed?
Standard?
Standard speed.
Confirmed.
That's done it. Seems we're on course now.
It didn't answer any of your questions. More than that, it deliberately ignored them. A computer can't have a will of its own.
You'd better tell Zen that.
They were all joined by the ship's artificially intelligent computer Zen, capable for the ship's processes, which make up the 7-strong crew of the very first season. There we have the heroes, or should I say anti-heroes. Well, those are the beginnings, and I have quite outstayed my welcome with you, so stay tuned for more Blake 7. We have looked at the good-ish, so next time let's focus on the bad and the ugly, as well as the seasons that made Blake 7 TV gold. Until then, cheerio!
Yeah.